She was 11 years old. They put her on a velvet cushion inside a New Orleans bordello and auctioned her body to the highest bidder. The camera rolled. The director yelled, "Cut." Critics called it art. Her mother cashed the check. A few years later, another girl, 9 years old, sat in a booth at Studio 54, surrounded by cocaine and celebrities twice her age. Nobody called the police. They called the paparazzi. And somewhere on a Nickelodeon set in Burbank, California, a teenage girl was told to open wider, stick out her tongue, and do it again. The audience laughed. The showrunner smiled. The camera kept rolling. You watched all of this. So did I. And for decades, nobody called it what it was. One comment under a video about former Childstars says it all. We thought it was the greatest job ever. Finally finding out how bad it really is makes me sick to my stomach at the joy I was feeling while those kids were suffering. That person spoke for an entire generation. In 1974, 10-year-old Tatum O'Neal walked onto the stage at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles and accepted the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. She had starred in Paper Moon alongside her father, Ryan O'Neal. She became the youngest competitive Oscar winner in history. That golden statue weighed more than her future ever would. Ryan O'Neal was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, known for Love Story and Barry Lyndon. He was also, by his daughter's own account, the architect of her destruction. In her 2004 memoir, A Paper Life, Tatum described a childhood filled with hard drugs and violence, cocaine on the coffee table at their Malibu beach house, alcohol offered to her like juice before she turned 7. Wild parties lasted until dawn, with no adult protecting the children in the house. She later connected every addiction, every broken relationship, every lost decade directly to those early years in Malibu. When Ryan O'Neal died in December 2023, he left behind a multi-million-dollar estate. According to reports, Tatum received nothing. She described it as his final act of revenge, punishment for publishing a memoir that told the truth about what he did. The Oscar was not a reward. It was a Trojan horse. It told the world she was special. It told her father she was profitable. Profitable children do not get protected. They get used. Drew Barrymore was 7 years old when she starred in Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial in 1982. It became the highest-grossing film in history at the time. Spielberg became her godfather. America fell in love with her, and her mother, Jade Barrymore, took her to Studio 54 on West 54th Street in Manhattan. Not once. Regularly. A 9-year-old girl sitting in VIP sections of New York's most notorious nightclub, while adults around her snorted lines off bathroom counters and drank Dom Perignon. Photographers snapped pictures of her dancing next to grown celebrities. Those photos ran in tabloids the next morning. Nobody intervened. Jade was right there beside her, ordering drinks. Drew later described this era in interviews as so wrong, but so fun. 5 words that perfectly capture the psychology of a child normalizing her own exploitation. She did not know it was abuse because every adult around her was participating in it. By 12, she was drinking heavily and using cocaine. By 13, she was placed in a psychiatric institution called ASAP Family Treatment in Los Angeles. By 14, she hired an attorney, walked into a Los Angeles courtroom, and legally emancipated herself from her mother. A child went to a judge and said the person who is supposed to protect me is the person I need protection from. But this was just a child being abused by adults. Drew survived. She rebuilt her career, launched a production company, created a cosmetics line, and now hosts a daytime talk show. But survival is not the same as justice. The adults who put her in those rooms, the club owners who let her in, the photographers who published her image, her own mother who brought her there, not one of them was ever held accountable. Jennette McCurdy grew up on the Nickelodeon lot in Hollywood. Millions of kids across America watched her play Sam Puckett on iCarly from 2007 to 2012. Behind the camera, her mother Deborah controlled everything: her food, her body, her boundaries. In her 2022 memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, which sold over 2 million copies in its first year, McCurdy describes being subjected to what she calls medical examinations of her body well into her teenage years. She describes shared showers with older siblings while her mother monitored their bodies. She describes calorie counting enforced since childhood, bleaching her hair from age 10, and a regime of emotional manipulation so complete that she couldn't separate love from control. The title of her book is not a provocation, it's a diagnosis. Alyson Stoner began her career at age 3 in a Gerber baby commercial. By 6, she was auditioning in Los Angeles. One audition required her to act out sexual violence on camera. After that audition, she walked directly into the next room and tried out for a Princess Toy commercial. She was 6 years old. That is not a career. That is psychological whiplash designed by adults who saw her as inventory. By 12, Stoner was malnourished and chronically stressed from set conditions on Disney productions that she says would violate child labor laws in any other industry. By 17, she checked herself into a residential treatment facility in Los Angeles. Her management team sent her audition tapes while she was on bed rest. They were not worried about her health. They were worried about her momentum. Stoner coined a phrase that should be the title of every documentary ever made about this industry. She called it the toddler-to-trainwreck pipeline. It is not a pipeline. It is a conveyor belt, and it has been running for 100 years. Ariana Grande made her Broadway debut at 15 in the musical 13 in 2008. By 2010, she was on the Nickelodeon lot in Hollywood, starring in Victorious and later Sam and Cat. Both shows were produced under the banner of Dan Schneider, the most powerful showrunner in children's television at the time. She was one of the biggest child stars on the network during the exact era that the documentary Quiet on Set would later investigate. After Quiet on Set aired in March 2024, old clips resurfaced across TikTok and Twitter. They showed scenes where teenage girls were placed in suggestive positions on Schneider's shows. Jokes that adults wrote for children to perform, jokes that only adults would understand. Social media dissected every frame. Grande has remained largely silent about this era. In an industry where silence is currency and speaking up costs everything, her quiet is deafening. Demi Lovato tried to tell her story differently. In September 2024, she released a Hulu documentary called Childstar, interviewing fellow former child actors about pressure, addiction, body image, and mental health. Critics called it honest but messy, more collage than thesis. There is a moment in that film where Lovato sits behind the mixing board of her own production, in her own studio, calling the shots. You realize this is a woman who was consumed by the machine and is now trying to dismantle it from inside. The machine does not care. It already has new faces, younger ones, with ring lights instead of studio lights. Every story in this documentary has a recurring character. Not a villain in a boardroom, not a predator in a trailer. Someone closer. The mother. Teri Shields signed contracts that put her naked 11-year-old daughter in a feature film. Drew Barrymore brought her 9-year-old to Studio 54 on school nights. Deborah McCurdy performed invasive examinations of her teenage daughter's body and called it care. Alyson Stoner's management team at William Morris kept pushing auditions while she was hospitalized. Ryan O'Neal offered his daughter cocaine before she could tie her shoes. This is not coincidence. This is the system working exactly as designed. Hollywood needs access to children. Parents provide that access. In return, parents get money, proximity to fame, and the intoxicating belief that their child is special, which really means their child is profitable. The old Hollywood studio system at MGM did it with Judy Garland in the 1940s. Pills to stay thin, pills to stay awake, pills to sleep. Louis B. Mayer called her his little hunchback while she earned millions for the studio. The modern version does it with non-disclosure agreements, brand deals, and Instagram algorithms. The costume changed. The crime did not. Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, premiered on Investigation Discovery in March 2024 and detonated like a bomb across American media. It investigated Nickelodeon, Dan Schneider, and the culture that allowed suggestive content, toxic behavior, and alleged sexual abuse to thrive on sets filled with minors in Burbank and Hollywood throughout the 2000s. Clips were shown that had been hiding in plain sight on YouTube for 15 years. Sketches from The Amanda Show and All That, where children licked objects, where bare feet were centered in frame, where the punchline required a minor to simulate something no child should ever simulate on camera. 20 million people had laughed at these scenes when they first aired. Now they were horrified. It was called a watershed moment, a Me Too for children's television. Nikolas, a former Zoe 101 actress who had been protesting outside Nickelodeon headquarters for years, said she had been waiting 17 years for today. One viewer wrote that Quiet on Set is one of the most genius titles ever. So smart, but so sad when you realize the meaning behind it. Another said what millions were thinking, that the fact that the Nickelodeon logo is a giant foot is the biggest red flag we never saw. But here is what that documentary didn't do. It didn't go back far enough. It started with Schneider in the late 90s. It should have started with Shields in 1978. Because the pattern didn't begin on a Nickelodeon soundstage in Burbank. It began in a New Orleans bordello. It began in a Los Angeles courtroom where a 14-year-old asked a judge to free her from her own mother. It began every single time an audience clapped for a child and never once asked who is profiting from this applause. Quiet on Set was the moment America finally found the words. This documentary asks, why did it take 50 years to say them? The studio moved. It's in your house now. Family vloggers, kidfluencers, children with millions of followers on YouTube and TikTok before they can spell their own name. Parents filming tantrums, first periods, emotional breakdowns, and monetizing every second through AdSense and brand deals. In the Netherlands and across the European Union, media regulators are finally tightening rules around child influencers. Starting in 2025, new legislation treats commercial content featuring minors the same way it treats child labor in film and television, because that is what it is. The Dutch Media Authority has already issued fines. Investigations into family channels with millions of subscribers are underway in France, Germany, and Belgium. A commenter captured the darkest part of this new era. There are Instagram accounts that provide exclusive photos and videos of their children in revealing outfits for a price. Who do they think is paying to see photos of young girls in swimsuits? Nice moms? Or do they know there are child predators watching and just don't care as long as it pays for the lifestyle they want? The set changed. The director changed, but the transaction is identical. An adult profits from a child's public body, and the child has no voice in the arrangement. The ring light is the new studio light. The algorithm is the new executive, and the upload button is the new audition. Except this time, there is no union, no set teacher, no Coogan law protecting their earnings, and no one yelling cut. Brooke Shields made a documentary about her own exploitation when she was 57 years old. It premiered at Sundance in January 2023. Drew Barrymore hosts a daytime talk show on CBS where she is, finally, the adult in the room. Jennette McCurdy wrote a memoir that outsold every celebrity book of 2022 and was named one of Time magazine's best books of the year. Alyson Stoner launched a nonprofit and a YouTube series dedicated to protecting the next generation of child performers. Demi Lovato turned the camera around and asked, "What did this industry do to us?" They survived. They spoke. Because they spoke, we can no longer pretend we did not know. An attorney left a comment saying, "I want to learn how I can help, both as a legal professional and as someone starting a family. A parent wrote that every parent considering getting their children into the business should be required to watch these videos. A young actress who is still working, still active in the industry right now, simply wrote 5 words. "I'm a child actress since I was 5. It is horrible." She did not need more words than that. So here is the question this documentary leaves you with. Right now, somewhere, a child is performing. On a set in Hollywood, on a screen on YouTube, on a live stream in a living room. An adult is making money. Another adult is watching. And no one is asking the only question that matters. Who is protecting that child?